p.m. in the Langston Centre tonight. First, we will have the invocation by Pastor T.R. Dunn from Abundant Life Church. And if you will stand for that and remain standing for the pledge.
Let us pray. Father, we're just so grateful for this day, a day we've never seen. You told us to rejoice and be glad in this day. And God, it's this time that we come together again as men, as women, to come to do business for our city. And God, I just pray that you would touch these leaders as they lead. Help them to lead with understanding, with wisdom, and with love. And God, we just pray over our city tonight. We pray for everybody that's involved in anything that they say, anything they do. And God, let it be done according to your will. For God, we love you and we appreciate you for everything. In Jesus' name, amen. To the flag, United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioners, your first order of business is to consider the approval of the minutes for the regularly scheduled City Commission meeting held on Thursday, August 1st, 2024.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor, we had no one sign up for public comment on the agenda, so we'll move to proclamations. Our only proclamation tonight is a recognition of Flora Joy for her Hopes and Dreams quilt that is on display at the Langston Centre. And I think that Commissioner Brock is going to do that.
I am. She's not here yet, so I wonder if we can just push it down the...
She may have gone to
she could
City
have gone
Hall
to City Hall.
where we
Okay, so
usually do these things.
let's
That
give her a
everybody else
minute
has gone
and
there
we'll-
today thinking we were there.
we will do it.
All right.
Commission, the next order of business then is the consideration of the consent agenda.
All right, I'll start. Commissioner Wise?
I have nothing to pull.
Vice Mayor?
No, sir, I have nothing to pull.
Commissioner Brock?
None.
John?
No. I don't have
None?
Nope.
I don't have anything either. Do I have a motion?
Move approval. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
The next order of business is under first reading of ordinances. Item 7.1 is ordinance 4895-24. This is the first reading. It's an ordinance providing for the conveyance of a certain parcel of real property owned by the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, located in the 10th Civil District of Washington County, Tennessee, to Washington County, Johnson City Animal Control Center upon the terms and conditions contained herein, and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith. And we have our Deputy City Manager, Trivett, here.
Good evening, Commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to present this ordinance to you. This ordinance is about a piece of property that's located on Rome Street where the current animal shelter is. In 2012, that property was purchased by the animal shelter to construct the new building that they're in. And then in 2015, the city requested the animal shelter convey a piece of property up toward the front of Rome Street. It's about 1.3 acres to the city in hopes of building a fire station there. We've owned that property since 2015, but we have since done a UT MTAS study regarding our fire departments and the best location. And that piece of property was not deemed to be appropriate for a fire department with meeting our needs currently. So the animal shelter could use that property for future expansion, for future revenue resources. And so we're coming to you today to ask that you consider conveying it back to the animal shelter at no charge.
Move approval. Second.
Mayor, before we vote, I would like to disclose I am on the Animal Control Board, but I have no interest in this piece of property.
Any other discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Commission, the next order of business is item 7.2. This is ordinance number 4896-24. This is the first reading and public hearing. This is for the FY 2024 supplemental budget ordinance. It's an ordinance appropriating additional funds to the various departments and divisions of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, with additional revenue from local, state, and federal resources. And Budget Director Dustin Thompson is here to discuss this item.
Thank you, Ms. Ball. Commissioners, good evening. As Ms. Ball said, this is your FY24 supplemental budget ordinance. We do a supplemental budget ordinance every year. This ordinance does two things. It sets a budget for items that were not captured in the original budget or the subsequent budget amendment. And secondly, it formalizes the school amendments that have been adopted by the Board of Education throughout FY24. The highlight of the general fund is the funding that's going for the tapestry project, which you all have approved. Other than that, this amendment, this ordinance amends, the Community Development Fund, the Police Drug Fund, as well as the Freedom Hall Fund. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those. Otherwise, we recommend your approval on first reading after public hearing.
Mr. Thompson, I think it'd probably be good to just mention this or talk about it, and I see Dr. Timms here as well. One of the things we were trying to accomplish by one of our referendum by, having to post the first run of the budget by May 10th was because we don't get the school budget numbers. I mean, here we've got $8 million coming into the schools that we couldn't have put in that document whatsoever. And so we were really trying to clean up a lot of stuff by getting a more accurate budget out, at the time, so people weren't confused by it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that pretty much what your thoughts on that as well?
Well, when we published the first ad, you are correct. And even our budget, it's not the final budget. And when we publish the first ad, the schools do not have their final numbers. The second ad that's published in the newspaper, that is based on the budget ordinance, and that is what you vote on every year.
Is everything in that last one? But we really are making an amendment to that final one that's printed in the paper of almost
Correct.
$8 million.
So when the second ad is based on the ordinance on which you vote,
Mm-hmm.
and at that point, it can only be changed either through amending the budget throughout the fiscal year, or in this case, through a supplemental budget after the fiscal year is end, as you said, to clean up
Which
the
is what we're
prior
doing.
fiscal year. Yes.
Thank you.
Seeing this has a public hearing, I will do that, and then we can make comments. I will open the public hearing for anyone wishing to speak on this. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioners, the next order of business is your ordinances under second reading. Item 8.1 is ordinance 4890-24. This is the second reading and public hearing. It's an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, by changing from R5 district to B4 district for the property located at 0 Mockingbird Lane. And we have our planner, Bryce McNamer, to present on this item.
Thank you, Manager Ball. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, Commissioners. I am Bryce McNamer, planner with Development Services. There have been no changes to this rezoning, and staff's recommendation remains the same.
Move for approval.
Public hearing.
Open.
Public hearing, yes.
Open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak? Come forward. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
Move approval. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Commission, next order of business is item 8.2. This is the second reading and public hearing for ordinance 4891-24. This is an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee by changing from R0-1 to B4 for property located at 2721 East Oakland Avenue. We have our planner, Callie McGraw. Thank you, Callie.
Sorry, I'm having issues getting this to present, but good evening, Commissioners. I'm Callie McGrew. This is the second reading, and there have been no changes since the first reading.
Public hearing.
And there's a public hearing with this, so I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
Move approval. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Commission, the next item is item 9.1. This is the third reading for ordinance number 4892-24. It's an ordinance to update Title 14, Chapter 3 of the Code of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, regarding the Johnson City stormwater repeal and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith. We have Public Works Director Jason Miles to present on this item.
Thank you, Ms. Ball. Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor. Jason Miles, Public Works. This is the third and final reading. No changes since the second reading.
Move approval. Second.
A motion and a second. Second. Any discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Next item, Commissioners, is item 9.2. This is an ordinance number 4893-24. This is the third and final reading of an ordinance to update Title 18, Chapter 8 of the Code of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, regarding the Johnson City Erosion and Sediment Control Ordinance and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith. And again, we have our Director, Jason Miles. Thank you, Jason.
Good evening. Again, no changes since the second reading.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioners, under item 10, under other business, we have two items, both of which of these items were approved as part of your budget for FY25. Under those items, it's a requirement that we have adopted memorandum of understandings or interlocal agreements depending upon the agency. And so under the item 10.1, this item is to consider approval of an interlocal agreement between the City of Johnson City and 911 Emergency Communication District of Washington County. Just as a quick reminder, it's budgeted in the current budget at $1,375,000. This is an increase of $50,000 from last year's budget. And we have our 911 Director, Mr. Matherly, here if there's any questions.
Would you come up, Mr. Matherly?
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners.
I just thought it'd be a good time maybe to do a quick overview of 911 and, the things that y'all are facing, that's going on in the county today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you all bringing that up and some of the things we have going on here in Washington County. Of course, this agreement allows us to dispatch for police, Johnson City Police Department. It also allows us to operate the records console that runs your tags and warrants and all those items for the City Police Department. It also allows us to dispatch for Washington County, Johnson City Animal Control and assist the city in doing that as well. It also allows us to dispatch the Johnson City Fire Department and the Johnson City EMS here in the city. So we appreciate you so much for this agreement. This is also a requirement of the Tennessee Emergency Communications Board. As our population grows in the city and city services increase, so must sometimes we have to have additional staffing. We didn't accomplish all our goals this year, but you can't accomplish them all in one. And I appreciate your partnership. This has been a great partnership since 1987, and it has served our community well. We are one of the few consolidated centers in Washington County where your call is answered, your call is dispatched. Every state, every county in the state of Tennessee is different how they do 911. Our neighbors just down the road, they have 3 different 911 centers that they operate and dispatch out of. But here in Washington County, some great leaders worked together in 1986 and 87 and put all this together to create a 911 system that's consolidated. There's more talk in the state of wanting many counties to become consolidated. And we hope that the state will recognize that we're doing that. I think if the state would recognize that we could increase the 911 surcharge a bit, it would relieve some of the burden from cities and counties both in funding 911 centers. But we appreciate you all. And over the years with your funding, we've been able to become an I-3 center, which is the most advanced 911 center with location services. We've been able to implement texting to 911, and we're ready to turn on our video to 911 as well. So that partnership has allowed us to do all these things, and that's good news for the citizens.
How many dispatchers do you have?
Currently, we have 53 dispatchers.
And you cover 24/7?
24/7, 365. We want to be there. And that's a combination of the county's funding, the city's funding, and the state's funding of 911. And without those 3 partners, it just doesn't work. And that's one of the things that I try to emphasize. 911 is a partnership. And we dispatch many agencies, 8 volunteer fire departments in Washington County. And just in volunteer fire alone, probably other entities in Johnson City and the county fire service that responds and helps each other no matter where they are in the county. And they all work together, and that's probably about 14 agencies right there just in itself.
Last question, somebody else can take over. Do you track how many calls a year you take?
About 124,000 is where we're landing right now. We'll probably have a few more this year. Seems to be that we're ever increasing. I remember when I first come to 911 7 years ago, I always look at July the 4th, and it always kind of tells me how busy we were in July. That seems to be our busiest month. And I remember having 300 true 911 calls that day. Last month, when I look back at July, we had 400 911 calls. And as we get busier and as we grow, we're going to have more 911 calls. We expect that. But also, I try to plan for that because I know that there's a need, and as we grow and as the city grows, of course, our staff has to grow a little bit as well, just to be able to answer the radio portion of it as well.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes. Thank you so much. Appreciate everything that y'all did.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate you.
Commission, the next order of business is to consider the approval to renew the memorandum of understanding between the City of Johnson City and Sync Space Entrepreneur Center. This is budgeted again in the current budget at $125,000 and remains the same. And I think we have Heath Gwynn and we have Alicia Summers to present on this.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Alicia Summers, Economic Development Director. So what we have tonight for your consideration is the MOU between the city and SyncSpace. And just as a reminder, this will be our 5th year entering into this agreement where we partner with SyncSpace to promote entrepreneurship. Our financial commitment of $125,000 annually is matched by SyncSpace, but really between some other funding that flows through SyncSpace, our ROI on those funds are about $267,000. And this covers where it supports the economic vitality strategic goal, and the staff recommends approval.
Any motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I would be interested in just hearing from SyncSpace. They've existed now for a number of years, and just how you begin to quantify and measure, success. Like, what businesses can we point at to say, but for SyncSpace, these businesses, these employers wouldn't exist or wouldn't be here?
Sure. That's a great question. Thank you, Commissioner. So as a recap, SyncSpace is the partner through the state of Tennessee's network, Launch Tennessee. So we are directed to serve the upper 8 counties of Northeast Tennessee through the goals of the state as it relates to entrepreneurship and innovation. Our focus has been to also help develop an ecosystem network within the city and the region at large to help establish community resource centers to allow people who are in the business or wanting to start a business or trying to grow a business to have access to the resources that we provide, and then also other organizations as well. So our focus has been strongly on building that ecosystem over the last few years. In just the last quarter of fiscal year 24, we had the most graduates of an entrepreneurial program that we've had ever in one particular quarter. In Johnson City, we had almost 40 graduates across a number of programs, including the startup boot camp that we had a co-starters program. We had the state's first expansion of a minority entrepreneurship program out of Northeast, that happened here in Northeast Tennessee. In fact, we had a celebration here in this very building. So we're seeing a lot of new engagement in communities in Johnson City that we haven't had before. It also is leading us to a robust place for us when we think about recruiting. For us, recruiting is kind of defined by how we recruit in technology or talent that's looking for a particular place or resource that they can't find in other areas. We believe Northeast Tennessee, particularly Johnson City, has some unique things that the state doesn't have, and then the broader region outside of the Tennessee borders doesn't have as well. Also, we consider in recruitment talent retention, which is how do we help make sure that people who are talented here, which we've historically had a problem losing, whether they have a technology we can't serve or if they're a minority looking for resources that haven't existed before, that we count that as success also as part of that recruitment plan. When we think about the businesses that we coach, we have around 60 companies that we coach every quarter, which would lead to some sort of mentoring program as part of our mentor network. So when we determine success, we have a very broad view of what success may look like. Sometimes it's moving companies through programs and then helping them find a resource at the end of the program, which may be as simple as filing a business license. It could be looking at hiring or raising capital or a number of different things. We also have a significant influence in the small business community that doesn't show up necessarily in entrepreneurial programming. In fact, I'd point to a couple of companies that have found ways to be integrated into the boom or the success that Johnson City is having as a city in growth in a number of industries, where they have been able to successfully raise capital, hire local talent, and then do quite well in some of the things. And I'll point to construction and real estate development as an example of that. Not one that shows up in a boot camp per se, but experienced entrepreneurs who've done quite well as the city has been growing. So our focus has been strongly on those. Some things that are probably for disclosure, some things that aren't. We have an impact report that I'd love to point you to that shows the investment that has been seen over the last 24 months, the last 12 months in particular, which exceeded over $12 million of private investment capital. And that includes a local company who is in the energy space, raised a little over $10 million in a Series A round, which is something that's very, very uncommon in our region. Also, we had healthcare and construction companies be able to raise significant capital over 6 figures apiece, which again is quite uncommon. And then we see the investment from the Tennessee State Invest Tennessee program, which was the capital fund that the state of Tennessee designated for investment into small businesses, where we're seeing more applicants come through Johnson City and the region who are applying for capital. And so we're seeing a lot of movement in the capital space that we would call success. Now, if it's a company that's in more of like a technology space, the trajectory of what you would call success and how you could point to them as where they're at and the impact they're having is a little bit longer of a life cycle than, say, a small business who can hire skilled trade workers and go to work for as a contractor for a big home builder or the home building industry. In 2025, we're actually going to see some really interesting things happen, frankly, some things that I've been working on for a couple of years myself, which includes a new partnership with ETSU. And so if you consider that the focus of the last several years of the partnership with Johnson City has been to establish this ecosystem in which there's a lot of communication and collaboration for the existing small business support and startup support, as well as hoping to introduce new people into that ecosystem, we've done a pretty good job of building that collaboration. A little over 30 organizations communicate within that ecosystem. What we've not had and what we're going to be seeing in this coming year is the introduction of an advanced program that will allow for companies who are cresting out of that initial startup idea phase and looking to actually move into a growth phase where you may think about raising considerable more money or hiring their first employees, that sort of thing. And in fact, I've spent most of today with the university in a joint venture that the university, the ETSU, has signed with SyncSpace to help develop this program and launch this program in late 2024. Additionally, this accelerator program is supported by the introduction of a true micro venture fund that will be coming and be announced at the end of this quarter in the region, which is seeing a significant increase in private, typically accredited investors, high net worth individuals wanting to participate in the startup ecosystem. Again, something we've historically never had access to. And then finally, the piece that I'm very excited to announce too is that through the state of Tennessee and our partnership with Launch Tennessee, we're actually going to see the opening of a true tech transfer office at the university. The state of Tennessee has applied for grants specifically to launch a tech transfer office at the university. And what that means is that when you have intellectual property or technology or ideas that need to move through the patent process prior to being able to launch to the market, they have to go through some sort of a tech transfer office or an IP attorney. We have some great private attorneys that work in this space, but the university has never had a true office to commercialize ideas that come out of the university or that people approach the university to try to commercialize. What we've been able to secure through the state of Tennessee is an additional $80,000 to launch. This is not reported in the matching dollars that we have for the budget consideration tonight, but an additional $80,000 that will be to introduce this commercialization office, which will allow companies who would be able to patent intellectual property. A lot of times that's things that when you drop it, it makes a noise, that they would be able to do that here now in Johnson City for the first time, have access to the university's brain power and research capabilities in order to help grow those companies. And so the combination of this advanced program, the accelerator, the introduction of a micro venture fund that will partner with the Invest Tennessee program to help bridge the gap for access to capital where we typically lose the most talent, and a new commercialization office allows Johnson City to be repositioned in a way that we haven't seen ever in the history of the startup ecosystem that I'm aware of. And so that gives us an ability to reframe what success may look like. One thing that I personally have a conviction about is I love the fact that we have a lot of integrated programs where you see people graduate and have a lot of access to education and mentorship. It's important that we have them do that because of the ability of the education that they get and they continue in their business journey. However, what I believe is what you count for success, I want to say is maybe what you're asking is how do we see that impact the economy locally? How do we see the job creation go along with the effort, as well as then how do we see the introduction of capital into the regional network as opposed to it being only happening on our borders. And so I think that has been something we've seen continue to trend upward over the last couple of years in particularly, and then that this year with the inclusion of the new $80,000 for that office and another $30,000 for the program, that we're going to see a significant bump in that and what we'll track next year as success for this growth stage companies.
Well, and I think it would be interesting if we're talking about an entrepreneurial ecosystem, you're talking about a level of collaboration and relationship. You know, I've started businesses. It's a very lonely endeavor. And so it'd be very interesting to hear from some of those people, how they've been impacted by these dollars. I mean, it's great to hear from you,
Sure.
but you're the salesman. I'd like to hear from the benefactors that can say, but for the investment of time and talent in creating this ecosystem, my business would have never gotten off the ground, or we would have hit a ceiling, or we wouldn't. And so I would just like to kind of better understand where we're actually getting traction.
Absolutely. I think it's a great idea. We have an event that's being scheduled now that'll be in the beginning, just after the beginning of the new year, in which we'll be highlighting the ecosystem successes, and so I'll make sure that the commission is invited and represented at that event. It's a very localized event in which we'll have a lot of brainstorming around the ecosystem itself, but then we'll also have the opportunity for some of these entrepreneurs to speak. In the meantime, though, if there's opportunity for me to send information your way specifically related to those companies, I'd love to do that.
Sure. Thank you.
I made a motion.
Do we have a second? We have a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Laus?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Fowler?
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate you being here tonight. We may, since she's not here, we may go ahead with that presentation, let Commissioner Brock do the presentation, even though she's not here, but she could see it recorded that way. They already had one thing here for her, so we'll just
Or
make it
do we
official.
want to wait till the next meeting so she could be here?
We can do that, certainly.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm agreeable to either, but
We'll
Whatever
wait.
you think's
We'll
best.
wait.
Okay.
Motion or-
We will do it at our next meeting. So we're done.
We'll defer it to the next meeting.
Done. Ms. Ball?
Okay. We have no other formal business on the agenda.
All right, well, I will start on my left. Commissioner Hunter, anything?
nothing bad.
Commissioner Brock? Vice Mayor Murphy? Commissioner Wise? Seeing nothing else, I will close the meeting.